Today, as you know, we're going to be talking about recruiter tools and campaigns. So NationBuilder has some powerful recruiter tools that, if harnessed well, can be extremely valuable for expanding and empowering your supporter base. I know that people joining are coming from sort of different backgrounds of how much you know about recruiter tools, because a lot of you did the survey. So thank you for doing that. That was very helpful for me to kind of bring the content together for this. I guess before we start, just a couple of, rules, if you will. Please do turn on your video if you can, if you're in a suitable place. It's always nice to see your faces. And make sure you're muted as much as possible. For anyone who's just joined, drop your name in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. If you do have questions, please share them in the chat as we go. I will try and keep an eye on that. But we'll also definitely have some time for questions at the end. I've timed it, and I definitely won't be just talking for the whole hour, so to speak. And yeah, I think that's probably everything. And then yeah, you can either put your questions in the chat, or we'll do a sort of spoken Q&A if people want to do that as well. So brilliant. Well, let's get going. So firstly, a little bit about your host. That's me. As I mentioned, I'm Ollie. I'm in London, in this lovely room that has no decoration. And I am an enterprise account manager over here in London, which is slightly bouncing after the football result yesterday, or soccer result, which is an exciting place to be. But my role as an enterprise account manager, as many of you will know, because you either work with me or you work with some of my colleagues, is really helping some of our enterprise customers to get the most strategic use out of NationBuilder. So that is many things. It might be, different strategies and different tools to enhance fundraising, or it might be what we're looking at today, which is all around kind of new ways to acquire supporters, and especially leaning on recruiter tools, and how a kind of recruiter campaign could look. So very quickly, I'm going to just talk about what NationBuilder is. I think 90% probably already know, so I'm not going to labor on this too much. But for anyone who doesn't, NationBuilder is leadership software that gives leaderships and organizations the ability to create a website, engage with your data through a CRM, broadcast to your community via email and text, and also fundraise for your community. We were founded in 2009 to democratize democracy, with the strong held belief that the world needs more and better leaders, and they need the tools to do that, which is where NationBuilder comes in. So it's our mission to strengthen democracy by offering the tools of leadership to everyone. Great, that's probably not new to most of you, but always good to cover. So recruiter tools and campaigns. Acquire new supporters at no cost. So we're going to talk about a few things. I want to start off just talking about why do a recruiter campaign? What is the value of that? I then want to talk about what are recruiter links, which are really the technical tool that kind of is behind all of these pieces and all of the pieces that come off it. What the sort of various elements for a basic campaign are, and then an advanced campaign. So, some of that might be familiar on the basic campaign to some of you, and then the advanced campaign might be kind of more than what you're looking for, but hopefully that will give you a chance to consume it as is relevant for you. And then we'll have a look at the end about planning your recruiter campaign, and I haven't put it on here, but we'll also do a sort of Q&A at the end. Cool. So firstly, what and why when it comes to recruiter campaigns? So it's probably to a degree self-explanatory, but I don't want to make assumptions. By recruiter campaign, what we mean here is ultimately encouraging your supporters to bring in people from their own networks and into your network. So this diagram here shows that you have your existing supporters, who are the ones in dark blue, and they have their own personal networks of friends and family, some of whom can be brought into your campaign through the relevant approaches and the relevant outreach even. So really what I mean by a recruiter campaign, I think, falls into ultimately sort of three buckets. Firstly, equipping your community with the ability to recruit people and encouraging them to do so. Keeping track of who it is that is recruiting people in order to make sure that you're following up with them appropriately and motivating them to do more and more. And then thanking and rewarding those best recruiters to identify future leaders and hopefully distribute leadership organically. So I always like to lean on some statistics, because it's all very well me sort of standing here and telling you that this is a thing, but I think it's helpful to see kind of what, you know, why should you be doing it, and what are the what are the underlying reasons for that. So first and foremost, I think growing your supporter base is why people would use a recruiter campaign. And the reason that recruiter campaign is particularly effective at this is that this statistic here from Nielsen, 84% of people trust friend referrals over other types of marketing. So in short, your most valuable tool for bringing in new supporters is your existing supporters that you already have. By mobilizing your supporters and harnessing tools that NationBuilder gives you to make it easy and valuable for your supporters to recruit, you can then enable them to do some of that key work for you. Building your supporter base organically through peer-to-peer recruiters is also free. And in the context of the uncertainty that we're experiencing, especially around paid promotion on social media, we have social media companies limiting advertising for specific use cases and potentially limiting acquisition streams. This becomes all the more valuable and important. And as well as being a fantastic and free way of bringing in new supporters, it's actually also a really good way of building trust and distributing leadership with existing supporters. So helping them to have more ownership of the cause, and thus encouraging them to dedicate more valuable time and effort, and seeing that they're getting more out of it from their efforts. So it's a really good way to engage people who maybe aren't interested in getting involved in other ways. So maybe they don't want to attend events or they don't want to donate, but they do have a network of people that they want to bring in. It's also a great call to action that you can ask all year round, regardless of activities or campaigns you have going on. Saying to someone, invite a friend, doesn't necessarily require a specific push on a campaign or whatever it is. And finally, it's easy to do. In fact, all you need is an action page with a clear call to action. So that might be an event, a petition, a survey, a sign up. And actually, it's likely already happening within your movement anyway. You've probably already got people who are passionate about a cause and want to share this with like-minded people. So you might as well make it easy for them to do that and give them the credit and encouragement for doing just that. So going specifically into kind of NationBuilder customers, across all nations, 2.6% of supporters are recruited. Now, this is regardless of whether they are actually using recruiter tools or not. This is just totally organic. So if you have a database of, say, 20,000 people, that is 520 supporters that are just coming in totally organically, which isn't awful, and that's before you're even really trying. But if you are trying, on average, those who are using recruiter tools such as leaderboards and others that we'll look at today recruit 5 times more than those that don't. So, basic back of the envelope maths, 5 times 520, we're now talking about 2,500 supporters, which is ultimately 10% of your supporter base. So, instantly just off that, you can see how this, on the averages, this can really make a difference. But to get more specific, I wanted to give you a specific example of a customer that I have worked with here in the UK called March for Change. Last year in 2020, they launched a petition calling for an inquiry into the government's response on the coronavirus pandemic. They harnessed recruiter links, WhatsApp buttons in emails, recruiter pages, and specific filters, all of the things we'll look at today. And off the back of that, they were able to get a petition signed by 128,000 people, of which 30.5 thousand of those signers had been recruited by others. So that's 25% of their signature base came in organically by asking their other 75% to share. So that's, you know, pretty compelling. Furthermore, 14,000 of those actually became recruiters themselves when followed up with to encourage to do more recruiting. And at the bottom here, we can see, so the bottom left is just a screenshot of an email that they sent out to people, which encouraged people to share the petition using click to share buttons, which we're going to have a look at. And it got a massive 22.8% click rate, which, you know, for an email of 53,000 people is pretty large. And obviously shows that when you make it easy for people to do this, they will do it, and that can ultimately lead to bringing more people in. Crucially, they were able to, off the back of this, shift into more fundraising and growth in other areas with a new audience. And the screenshot on the bottom right shows that they were successful with the ultimate petition, and an inquiry is announced and is somewhere in the background at the moment, I think, to start later in the year or something. Cool. And so just so, because I'm sure all of you now are thinking, right, okay, this is all very good, but how is this relevant to us? These are some of the different ways that you can, when I said all you need for a recruiter campaign is an action page, these are effectively the different prompts you can use. So the last example was a petition, which I actually think is often the best example because it's a really clear call to action. But you can also use it for different types of donations, first time recurring, events, bringing in volunteers, bringing in members, sign-ups, pledges, endorsements, and leaders. Great. So that's why you should use them. Hopefully that was compelling. But now, how does it actually work? Well, let's have a look. So in this stage, I'm going to get a little bit more technical and kind of go under the hood, so to speak. I think the important thing to caveat about this is you don't necessarily need to do all of these technical pieces, but I want you to understand how it works so that you have an understanding of how to apply it kind of later on. Great. So recruiter links are automatically generated links that allow you to track which of your supporters are recruiting others into your nation. So let's have a look at how they work. So I've got here a petition. I'm filling out the form on the right. I'm going to click add signature here, and then switching to the control panel. I'm Scooby-Doo in this situation, and this is my record in the control panel, and I've instantly, just from submitting those basic details, got all of that populated, including a recruiter. Now, the reason I got that is because the link I clicked was a recruiter link that my friend Lassie the dog had shared with me. And you can see here that it's saying that my recruiter is Lassie. So how does this link work? So that unique link is made up of a normal URL. So that might be, you know, nationbuilder.com/petition. And then what we call a recruiter code. So the recruiter code is that the question mark recruiter underscore ID equals. So that's the sort of code that lives in that. And then the sign up ID. To find the sign up ID, that's basically the unique NationBuilder ID. All I need to do is I go into Lassie's record here, click into Lassie's record, which I've done here, and I can see NationBuilder ID there is 545. So the recruiter ID in this case would be, sorry, the recruiter code would be question mark recruiter underscore ID equals 545. And then if I go back to the original form, and let's have a look at what this actual URL says, you can see it's the normal URL. So, you know, your domain /slug, and then that recruiter code. And that is how recruiter IDs work. Just going to quickly name here. We're not going to do a ton on fundraising IDs and fundraising strategies today. But I just want to name that the functionality for fundraising links is exactly the same as recruiter links. It's just that the pages they refer to are donation sign-up pages. So that's helpful to know. And, you know, this opens up a lot of ability for peer-to-peer fundraising and further distributed leadership. You can also view your fundraisers in the control panel in this view here, in the finance section, and individual totals and targets in their records. Great. So that's how they work. But now to the real meat. How should you actually be using them? How would I recommend you use them? And what are the elements for a recruiter campaign? So the last bit with the whole question mark recruiter underscore ID equals, you might be thinking, okay, that's kind of complicated. Am I going to have to go in, find the ID for everyone every time? That's not going to work very well at scale. The good news is you don't need to do that. That's what's happening under the hood, but we have a number of tools that actually make it easy for you to utilize those recruiter links throughout the product and dynamically share them with people who you're communicating with. So you don't need to go into a record every time and find their ID, and you can automatically include a dynamic, unique URL using tools across NationBuilder websites and email blasts. We have further features that will help you encourage your supporters to recruit more and more people. So let's have a look at those. Just going to take some water. So the first place that you can find recruiter links running that you might already be aware of, or if you're not, it might already be happening in your nation kind of without you knowing, is the social share prompt. So as a reminder, you may well be aware, this is a feature that lives on every NationBuilder action page and can be customized on all of them as well. So the simple functionality to how these work is you sign up on a form like this, and then I get a social share prompt like this, and then say I wanted to say, yes, I'm gonna share that I've signed this petition on Twitter. I click that on Twitter, and I get a pre-written tweet like this with my recruiter link that is specific to me. So that's my unique recruiter ID right there. So you can see there it says recruiter underscore ID equals 544. So that's going to be dynamic based on whoever's doing it. So, I'm 544, but say I was someone else who's got a different ID, it will show up as their ID and the system knows to populate that. So it's not going to populate the wrong person's. You also have the ability to turn these social share prompts off and on for each page, and you can configure the text, excuse me, that go into the social media, the pre-written text there that says this is seriously important. So just to show you, you can do that within the page settings, and that would be where you did it here, and then it automatically, includes the link with the recruiter URL after. So social media prompts are the first place. Auto response are another place that recruiter links can be utilized. Some NationBuilder stock themes have recruiter URLs automatically baked into the auto responses. So, for example, this is the control panel view of a auto response for a petition. And in this example, you can see, so I'm just going to click on the Facebook button here and see what's behind it. And it's showing here, it's probably a little bit smaller, but it's showing that I got the URL and it's saying page full URL with recruiter, which is the code that is, in this sense, automatically baked in, but you can add in to make sure that people are having their dynamic recruiter link exposed. Paul, yes, I can certainly share the slides. So in this case, it's already baked in, but if I want to manually add that in, it's very easy. I can just add in that code that looks like this. I've also included it on the slides there. And I know that that is going to automatically populate the full page full URL with the dynamic recruiter link as well. So everyone who's doing that will get their own one each time. I don't need to do any changes. So the email itself will come through looking something like this. So this time I am sign up 90, and so that's how it's going to come up and look like for me. There's a whole lot more you can do using auto responses and click to share buttons that we're gonna have a little bit of a look at in a moment later. So I just wanted to start with those because those are sometimes working in the background, and auto responses, social share prompts are turned on, and they can greatly improve engagement. And actually, what we've found is that many customers who don't actually know about recruiter links, they know they exist maybe, but they don't really know how to use them, actually have already collected recruiters organically, probably through these features. So you can go into your nation and find these, excuse me again, using a simple filter like this. So you can literally filter for is a recruiter, and you'll be able to see all of the people in your nation who have recruited someone. You can also filter on your top recruiters, so people who have who recruited 5 or more, for example, which is really valuable for sort of seeing who your best people are. And those are probably people that if you don't know about already, you might want to follow up with and kind of show them some love. And you can also filter all people who have been recruited. So I think someone actually mentioned this in their survey, that they were interested in how you can do that. So you can say origin recruiter exists, yes. Or if you want to see if if they've been recruited by a specific person, you can say origin recruiter is Michael, and then all of the people who Michael has recruited will appear. Once you understand who your recruiters are, you can actually use that data you have to understand how to acquire more people like them, so more potential recruiters, and analyze these people more closely. So do they have similar characteristics? Did they all join the Nation for a certain campaign? How can the data you can access in your Nation validate or clarify which campaigns your supporters care about? So that can be a really interesting thing to see. And for those of you that have Nations that haven't looked at these filters, I would definitely encourage you to do that after this session. So then you've got a few recruiters, maybe organically using those first ones, maybe up through other ways. You've then identified who they are through the filters. But now that you found them, you actually want to target them with unique dynamic information that's hopefully going to encourage them to share more and more. So once you've captured them via a filter, you can then send them an email blast and use smart fields. So for example, here is an email blast with the draft on the right-hand side and the preview on the left. We can make that draft a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing, because I appreciate that's not so big. Okay. So you can see here that we've written out our email, and we're going to use smart fields, which you can access via the drop down on the top left of the editor. So I'm going to find my smart fields, and we can see that within our smart fields, we've got one for recruiter code, which is that bit of code that we devised earlier, and also one for the recruiter count, i.e. how many people has X person recruited. And then say I want to use both of those, I'm going to add them into the relevant part of my email. So first off, I've got recruiter count. So I'm saying, it looks like your recruiter count to date is this. Thank you for sharing and recruiting. Please do continue using URL immediately followed by recruiter code. And that's what I've done here, which is going to hopefully encourage them to share more and more. And then if I go, so that was obviously in the editor version. If I look in the preview, I can see it's always, as a reminder, it always shows what you would see, what the logged in person would receive in an email. But so I'm logged in as someone who's recruited 2 people, and I'm recruiter ID 1 in this case, because I was logged in as NationBuilder support, which is always recruiter 1. And yes, so you can always manually, make yourself a recruiter to test it. And obviously you want to make sure that you only target actual recruiters, because you don't want to send that email to say you've recruited 0 people, but that's absolutely something that you can make sure to do as you filter. And another thing you can do to make it easier for your supporters to get their recruiter links is by creating a recruiter page, which can act as a one-stop shop. So again, this works dynamically. All you need to do, it's a specific page type within NationBuilder. You pick new page, recruiter page. All you need to do is to configure which page the recruiter page will refer to. So, am I recruiting people to a petition, an event, whatever it is? Add in the page content. So, as I've got in that paragraph there. And then, configure the draft tweet message as we did before. And then anyone who is sort of logged in, which basically means that in the session they have submitted an email address, they will then be able to go to this page and get their unique links, which as well as the ability to share on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, WhatsApp. And they can then, copy and paste the link or click on the click to share buttons. This specific one is actually in our relatively new momentum theme that allows this function actually on any action page, so long as the people are logged in. So these boxes here allows people to just copy and paste their recruiter code, a click to send an email, a click to tweet, or a click to Facebook. We actually now have click to WhatsApp in those as well. but I think I took the screenshot before we introduced that. Great. So those are some of the relatively basic things, you know, in inverted commas, you can do to get started. And they're probably always the places, you know, not necessarily all of them, but certainly some of them that I would start. But there are definitely some more cool tools that you can do to make the most of your recruiter campaign. And ultimately, these will make it easier for your supporters to share recruiter links and also to help incentivize them to recruit supporters through things like gamification, more ownership of the campaign, and reward schemes. So first up, helping your supporters to share. So we saw earlier how you can target your volunteers to ask them to share. But in reality, the easier and more appealing you can make the task of sharing, the more likely it is that people are going to share. So sending people the link is one thing, but sending them the link and the ability to share it at the click of a button is another altogether, and will make a huge difference, as we saw in that case study example. So we've obviously seen the click to share buttons in the social share prompt and on the recruiter pages that we just looked at, but you can also make your own and include them in email blasts as I've demonstrated here. And I thought it might be interesting to show you how you can do that. They can also be used in auto responses. And another great use case actually is using them in an email series. So, you know, one that is page triggered from an action like an event, with the next email sharing details and a follow-up with a more specific ask to recruit people. In fact, you should have received them in the emails that you got for RSVPing to this webinar. So hopefully you got an experience of how those look and how those can work. With a little bit of coding, you can actually add them also to web pages. So, you know, you can effectively build your own version of a recruiter page or a public profile page. We'll look at some of those later. But let's have a look at how to build them in emails. Great. So the first thing you want to do is you want to build the actual buttons. This is probably familiar to many of you. We're just using email button functionality that you can use in NationBuilder emails and you can access here. But so access by going to buttons, and then you can you know, build them in a normal way. But there is a shortcut that I wanted to share with you because, you know, building, I don't know, if you wanted to do all of these, that would be 6 buttons. It takes a little bit of time. And I've already gone to the work of finding the kind of colors of the social media providers for you. So what you can actually do is, I'm going to share this with you after, but you can go to this document and then you can copy and paste the source code. So if I go here, I'm going to go to all of the above. Okay, don't need to worry about that one. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to go into a brand new empty email and click into source code. So do you see this button here? This might not be familiar, but this is where you can kind of get into the source code of the email. And then I'm just going to put it after the first name or friend. I'm just going to paste it all in there. And just like that, there are my lovely buttons. So that can hopefully be a helpful shortcut. Obviously, if there's some that you're not interested in because, you know, you don't really use LinkedIn, you can just delete them. But hopefully that's helpful for getting you started on this. And then if I just save an update preview, that will, you know, that will make a start there. So I've got them in there. It's also worth noting you can do these in auto responses as well. Just going to flick through these slides because I showed you in person. But you can add these to auto responses. So in auto responses, you might know you can't sort of natively build buttons, but you can build the buttons in an email blast and then copy and paste over the auto responses, which is a good way to kind of, I don't know, make them a bit more flashy, I guess. So building the buttons is the first bit. Building the click to share URLs is obviously the next bit. So you've got your buttons designed, but right now these buttons aren't actually going to do anything. If I click here, there's no link sitting behind them because obviously you've got to make those links dynamic for what you want to do. So what I have done is I've actually built a tool so that you can generate your own click to share URLs for all of these different things we're seeing: SMS, WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, email. And then you can then copy and paste those URLs into the button URL. So, and then this is where you do it. So actually, let's just have a look at this. So this is what it looks like, but let's demonstrate the real thing. I'll make it a little bit bigger for you. Okay, so let's just start again here. So I've got here, this is my template. This is just the example column. And then I want to have some guide text. So maybe I'm going to say, I've just RSVP'd for the NationBuilder summer virtual party. Let's go with, you should come. Looks like fun. So this is obviously this is the pre-written text that isn't going to immediately get published, but this is kind of the guide text, the draft text that when people click on the button, it will be suggested that they send, but obviously they still have the ability to edit those. And then I'm then going to go to my URL. So don't need to worry about recruiter codes initially on this. So I'm just going to say www.nationbuilder.com/summer 2021. And then I'm going to choose my recipient recruiter code. So in this case, I'm using it in an email blast. So I'm going to choose email. If I wanted to do it for a website, the code is slightly different. So you can select that. Or if I don't actually care about recruiter codes for this specific one, I can pick that. But I definitely want to choose email because obviously the whole purpose of this is to talk about recruiter codes. And then there's one other thing you can do for click to share emails. So I'm just, which is set the subject. So I'm going to say, join me at the event, join me at this event. Great. So as I was doing all of that, as I was typing in all of those, I had a lovely little Excel spreadsheet formula that was populating all that we needed here. And what I can do, so this is WhatsApp, which I know isn't that widely used in the US, but is elsewhere, is I can then sort of test whether these work. So actually, I'll do WhatsApp, and then I'll do Twitter, and then I'll do my email, just to give a few examples. And what it's going to do is just based on that, it's taken all the kind of, the makeup of the URL, and hopefully, my email's being a bit slow today, it's going to draft an email that has all of that text that I wrote. So there we go. It's got, join me at this event. I just RSVP'd, you should too. It's got the URL there, followed by the recipient recruiter code. That's not come through properly, and I'll show you why in a moment. But that is how it's meant to be. Similarly, let's just have a look at the other ones. This is WhatsApp, so this is all ready to go as well, and it's prompting me to open it in my WhatsApp browser. And this is my Twitter one as well. So that's all kind of built it nice manually. Yes, I am gonna share this tool, so you can then just sort of copy it, make a copy of it, and use it for yourself. Obviously, rather than all of you using the same one. So I'll share that in the email afterwards. Now that's the first bit. We've kind of created the initial piece of it. But let me just flip through these because I've demonstrated them already. But obviously, what we need to do now is we need to take that URL. So let's take Twitter. And I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to a slightly more built out email that I've got here. I'm going to go to my share on Twitter button, and I'm going to click insert or edit button, paste it in there. Again, you see it's still saying this recipient recruiter code in the code, but that's really important because that's what keeps it dynamic. So then if I do that, click save and update preview. But if I then click on the share on Twitter here, so it's gone from the edit to the actual preview, it will hopefully now load with the specific recruiter ID for who I'm logged in as, which in this case is NationBuilder support, so it's ID 1. But say I was sending that to 200 people, each of their recruiter IDs would be different each time. Hopefully that makes sense. It's really important that you test these URLs before you send them out. So I definitely kind of recommend, quite strenuously testing them, probably even sending them to 2 or 3 people so they can test that their URLs are dynamic each time. And yeah, obviously to test it properly, you should make sure you click save and update preview, click on the preview on the left-hand side, and then see what actually renders to the recipient. And then these are just a few slides that will show you what we showed you already. So if you do it on the right-hand side, it's going to show recipient recruiter code. It's not pulling through the dynamic code. And then on the left-hand side, recruiter ID equals 1. That's good. It's all working as we'd hoped. Brilliant. Yes, Mylene, absolutely. We'll share a recording of this. So I think the reason that last bit's important is because, it's really important that we make it easy for our supporters to do things, whether it's signing up to things or sharing things. So even though, there's a little bit more work in doing that, when you're sending an email out to 2,000 people or however many it is, even if it's 50, you going that little bit extra means that for them to take it that much easier. And then if 20, 200, however many take that action, it's going to make a big difference. But now that you've made it as easy as possible for people to share via social share prompts, auto responses, maybe click to share buttons, recruiter pages, you then might want to consider giving them the motivation to actually share. So, okay, you've made it easy, but maybe motivate them and kind of invigorate them to do it. There are a few features and tactics that can help you to do this. I think the first and foremost being through leaderboards. So these can be configured to show recruits. Maybe it's recruits across all of your nation, or just a specific activity or a specific page. And you can also have recruiter goals, which helps people sort of work together to achieve a specific goal. As with all NationBuilder web pages, you can have these published publicly, or as lots of customers prefer to do because they don't necessarily want to kind of make public a list of their top supporters. You can also have them gated so that only people who are logged in can see them, or people who are members or admins can see them. And then you can use these really effectively by sharing them. Share them with your top recruiters to say, look, thank you so much, you're in the leaderboard, but do you want to be top of the leaderboard? Of course you do. And then encourage them to recruit more people and rise further up the leaderboard. Question I often get asked is, some people, won't want to be shown on a leaderboard. So it is possible to, takes a bit of customization, but it is possible to anonymize your leaderboards and potentially make them opt-in only. So, unless people have ticked a box to say, include me on a leaderboard, you can either not include them, or you can anonymize them. You can effectively ask people to opt in to appear to the leaderboard. You can also ask them to submit a username if they don't want their full name appearing on there. So there's a few little things you can do there as well. And I've also seen people use these as a sort of recognition incentive structure to say, for example, if you get to X recruits or in the top 20 of recruiters by a certain date, then you can be invited to an event or a VIP meetup, or sent postcards, t-shirts, mugs, which can be really effective as a form of recognition, especially if these are the sort of things that you're happening anyway. You might as well, make them a big feature for your top supporters. You can also use recruiters in conjunction with social capital. So social capital is a whole area that I'm not going to talk about in masses of detail today. We have lots of other webinars and resources on social capital, but in short, it's the virtual currency that runs in the background of your nation. Recruiting signups is by default given social capital. So as are other actions within the nation, like signing up to an event or whatever, this is just a register here on the right of what points people are getting for various actions. You can use social capital in leaderboards again, and we actually have a new integration whereby you can use them to allow supporters to use their social capital to buy merchandise in online shops. it's a good reminder to, I'll include that in the email as well. And if you have particular value on some actions over others, like recruiting actions, then you can actually, in your settings, you can say, right, I want, recruiting actions to give 20 points and then events to be 5 points or whatever. So that's all things that you can customize within your Nation. We also have public profile pages. So these are a native type of feature, which can be another way to help to motivate people to take more action, whether for recruiting, fundraising, whatever it is. They're effectively personal pages for your supporters to have, and they can edit the content of their own public profile from the front end of the website. NationBuilder templates by default allow you to use public profile pages for fundraising. So anyone who logs in can set a goal and get a unique page with a link to donate. But you can also, create a bio, attach social media account on websites. But with a little bit more customization, you can actually go a little bit further. We also have, an ecosystem of architects who can help you with this. This is something that you definitely want to do. So that might be including, unique recruiter links and recruiter accounts on their page. This customer, for example, had a detailed listing of the recruitees that they're contributing to their campaign. You might have, stylized fundraising pages with progress bars and fundraising links like this. You might have a dashboard that's bringing together all of the above info into one place. There's a lot that's possible here. I'm going over this fairly quickly, and this is probably where you're getting into the sort of developer area. If you have specific ideas, you might want to get in touch with a developer, but I just want to show you kind of what is possible, and it's all relevant to recruiter codes, recruiter functionality, as well as other things. Great. So those are lots of different tools you can use. I think I just wanted to finish before we stop the Q&A. It's 1:45. I don't know how that happened. Is just sort of thinking about, right, so all these tools are buzzing around, but like we haven't really talked about the campaign side of things. How do we bring these together? So really my recommendations for a basic recruiter campaign, I said requirements here, but it's not requirements, it's more recommendations, is, you want to work out what the actual ask is for people. So what is that basic action page? I always think a petition is very good, but it could be a survey, an RSVP, a basic sign up, request to donate. So create that page, configure the social share prompt within the action page settings. You might want to think about using an automated email series if you want, a series of emails after it, especially events. I think that makes sense, or the auto response as well, instead of. Think about a recruiter page as we looked at. So that's the sort of one-stop shop landing page for all the links to help them get going. You might decide that that's sort of surplus to requirement if you're doing lots of other things, but it's definitely a good thing to consider. Maybe you have a leaderboard. A lot of people kind of start this and then introduce a leaderboard later on, even if it won't be populated, till later. And then always use the opportunity to, reach out to your top supporters from previous efforts, which obviously you can find by filtering for previous recruiters, for people with social capital, and letting them know about the campaign, letting them know that you're going to be doing a recruiter campaign and that there's a leaderboard. People always love to hear about initiatives before they're formally launched. So this will help you to build trust with them, help them to kind of gain ownership with these people by making them feel special and exclusive. And I think the final piece of preparation in this sort of, on the preparation side, is make sure that you thought through the process of onboarding new people who are coming in. So maybe that is driving them to another action. So, if they come in on petition, do they want to then become a member, or do they want to sign up to a newsletter? Or it might be also thinking about, an automated welcome series that's welcoming them in, letting them know about the different ways to get involved. So then you're ready to launch the petition with the landing pages. Make sure you're pushing that out by email, social media, text messages, whatever your channels are. Get people to take action, get people to share it with their friends and family. Follow up with anyone who's signed to invite them to recruit. consider how you might vary language for people who have signed and recruited to those who have signed and not recruited to those who have not signed or recruited, and consider using, you might want to, if you're comfortable with using liquid logic, you might want to do some segmentation there. And then also follow up specifically with those people who have recruited, like in the example email that we saw already, letting them know how many people they've recruited, publicizing the leaderboard, encouraging them to take action, using click to share buttons to help them do it. That's when you'll really start to get the ball rolling. If you want to go a bit further, there are ways to do that. You can, fill all of that pipeline by using paid ads to get people into the petition. That's then going to get more people into the recruiter campaign. That can work really well in conjunction when you've built some good infrastructure there. Maybe you want to use social capital. Maybe you want to think about incentive schemes or a competition to say top 20 people get invited to an event, or everyone who's recruited 2 people gets sent a mug. Maybe you want to think about, some of those enhanced recruiter pages or public profile pages. Again, that's probably going down the way of working with an architect unless you're very comfortable, but they can be very powerful. And then you might also want to think about developing a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign, which I know I haven't really talked about today, but again, it's something you can do, and we have sort of further resources and webinars and blogs on that. Brilliant. I'm going to stop talking for a second and open the floor to questions. I'll just leave that slide up in case it prompts any thoughts or questions. Oh yeah, I can see there's a hand up. I can't see who it is, but please go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, my name's Ruth Harris. I'm in North Carolina, and my question is, if you're part of an organization that is multi-tiered, so there's a state organization, there's a district organization, there's a county organization. Is there a good way to coordinate this? So for instance, if somebody recruits somebody at the district level, can that person also be recruited into the county level at the same time? Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, if you just do this on a micro level, like at the county level, it's a lot of work. But if you do it at a higher level, but still can get all the benefits at a county level, it would be great.
I muted myself just as I was answering the question. Am I unmuted now? Yeah, I think so. So yeah, that's a good question. So it depends a little bit on the setup. Obviously, some customers have what we call a network setup, whereby they have the kind of HQ nation and then the other nations, below it, so to speak. So all the recruiting kind of happens in their own universes, which, if I understood your question correctly, that would solve for. But I'm assuming that isn't your setup. So there are probably kind of a few ways you can go about that. And it probably depends on, what the motivation is. Is it about bringing people in for the first time? Is it about, regardless of whether you're bringing people in, getting people to sign a petition? Or is it about, just overall getting lots and lots of people to take action lots and lots of times? If it's the first one, then the very native kind of functionality will serve you well. If it's the third one, then you'll probably want to dive in a bit more to social capital, which obviously you can then kind of see, right, well, this person, you can continually get points for recruiting people with social capital for recruiting actions. If it's somewhere in the middle, it probably takes a little bit more kind of, consideration depending on sort of exactly how you're doing it. But I think social capital can probably be very helpful for some of that, especially if you're not really using social capital otherwise, and you can then kind of reconfigure your points to be sort of primarily for for recruiting. So effectively, your social capital is just focusing on recruiters or primarily. I hope that's helpful. That's good to hear, Jordan. I'm not sure if that's a follow-up question. Go ahead. I'm seeing your hand still up, but I'm not sure if that was up from before.
I don't know if that was me that you're seeing this hand still up. I guess I can lower my hand here. But that I guess real specific question is if you're doing one of these campaigns at a higher level and someone recruits, like by just sharing on Facebook or sharing somewhere, some of the people that they share with will be at in the lower level and some won't be. And so I guess my question is, can you have these campaigns automatically enroll people? Like a real specific example is like if you're trying to get people to sign up for, there's email notices or email blasts, and there's a district level email blast that goes out and a county level email blast that goes out, and they're different because one's addressing very local events and one's addressing a higher level event. So when someone recruits somebody that is in their district, can it also at the same time bring them into the lower level county email list?
Oh, okay. I think I had misunderstood that then. So that's ultimately, yeah, I mean, absolutely it can. That ultimately depends a bit on what they're opting into on those forms. So, if it's a sign up page, you can encourage them to opt in for sort of, county level and state level or whatever you need it to be. You can get more granular with that on sign up pages than you can on petition pages. So if, for example, the call to action was a petition, you might want to consider having what we call, for the next page that they visit after they've done that, to be, fill in your preferences. I want to hear about this, this, and this. I want to hear from, the county, from whatever kind of level it is. So that's really about asking them what they want to hear about. And you can also think about that when you have your auto response or your welcome series to say, you've signed up to hear about this, but we also have this, this, and this going on. To sign up to those, click here and do that.
Okay, that answers it.
Great. Brilliant. Couple of minutes left. Any other burning questions? Or just questions? Cool. Well, that's 56 minutes, so that works well. Thank you everyone for joining. I am gonna add in something that I hadn't thought of to put in the follow-up email and download the recording, and then we'll send this out. But please, feel free to reply to that email if you have any specific questions, whether that's about recruiters or other things that I've touched upon or not. And yeah, really, really good to speak to you today. And I hope you have a good evening if that's where you're at, or just day. And yeah, speak again soon.